a few comments, but I will postpone them after Dr. Osman's presentation to cover all my comments in one go. Do I need to use the microphone? No, he needs to use the microphone for the simultaneous interpretation. Otherwise, we cannot hear. So at the outset, I would like to thank the center and Dr. Abla for her kind invitation for me to participate in this meeting. I would also like to thank Ms. Amal and Dr. Heba for their comprehensive presentations they gave. I'm proud of Dr. Heba's contributions, and I am a close follower of her work. She plans a lot of things with the World Bank in different reports to measure development, poverty, income distribution, and targeting policies and mapping poverty in 1,000 poor villages project. Dr. Heba is an expert in that. She had she used to work a lot with us in the Ministry of Planning, but then she went back to square one to talk again about poverty rates and the characteristics and demographics of the poor in Egypt. And when she presented now last the preventive or development strategies to eradicate poverty, especially in the 1,000 villages. We started with 150 villages, but then the project stopped, and we're trying to go back on track. For me, these contributions are the most important, and we should build on that. And I am appealing to Dr. Heba to continue her work in that regard. My remarks are based on my reading of the PowerPoint that was sent to me yesterday, and I followed with you the two interesting presentations made. But the presentation is on a complicated topic, a controversial topic. We discussed this a lot, especially with Dr. Heba, since I've known her or since I was appointed in the Ministry of Planning in 2001, and even before that, in the different reports on human development. I used to participate in, I think, issuing 8 reports starting from 1994 until 2010. We issued together human development reports. So we discussed a lot, and Dr. Heba helped us understand the literature, especially in the Western world. She helped us understand the methods and techniques used to conduct these studies, whether when it comes to measurements or to drafting policies and strategies. To cut a long story short, and due to time constraints, I will try to summarize everything we did in light of the presentation of Dr. Heba. I will try to be brief. I will make 10 points under 3 main pillars. First, poverty as a problem that warrants attention. In my own point of view, it's important for you to get a hard copy of the presentation, because certain parts, I'm not referring only to data, but certain parts are worth reading and rereading and reviewing. Dr. Heba rightly at the beginning of the presentation referred to the fact that poverty studies focus on monitoring poverty not as a static phenomenon, but rather as a potential phenomenon that might force fragile or vulnerable households to fall into poverty. It's important to widen the scope of poverty studies for two main reasons. First, economists in Egypt focused more, I think, from the 50s on the problem of inequitable distribution of wealth. Of course, in 60s and 70s, we did not refer to poverty, but rather we refer to inequality, especially in the literature of Bent Hansen, Fresh, Charles Asawi. Of course, Egyptian economists refer to the same thing. They focused on inequality or unfair distribution of wealth. Second, when poverty became a hot topic, the focus was on indicators like poverty rate or poverty percentage, and Dr. Heba and I made a mistake. We provided some material for this ongoing trend. Through different discussions with Dr. Heba, we try to search for the value of poverty line, and then like the minimum poverty line and the maximum poverty line, the national poverty line. We are not using international data by the World Bank. We are not referring here to $1 or $2. No, we're trying to calculate the national poverty line for basic needs, and the maximum. I don't know why did we call it lower poverty line and upper poverty line, but these are the terms that we used. So Egyptian economists and the media focused more on upper poverty line because it showed higher poverty rates. So this is how we tackle the problem. It's different dimensions. We lost sight of the deep analysis that we should be doing, implications and policies, and the focus has become on the rate or the percentage itself. And the fights are fierce when it comes to poverty line. I was under attack, under fire, especially in different media outlets. Media professionals kept asking me, how can you say that this amount of money will be enough in one day? Can you live on that on a daily basis? And I said no, because I'm not poor, so I cannot live on that. And then they would ask me, then how dare the minister say that they will poor people can live on that X amount of money and get 4 sandwiches of falafel, and that's more than enough. This for me, this is a kind of underestimation of the seriousness of the study itself. Dr. Heba used the data, and as Dr. Amel said, the poverty line is 736 AGP for the family, and Dr. Heba and Dr. Amel and our colleagues in the World Bank try to differentiate between the average poverty line for a household of 2 persons, or a household with 3 persons or with 4 persons, 2 adults and 2 children, because this makes a huge difference. Especially if this is taken into consideration by the Ministry of Social Solidarity. We tried to use the number of family members when it comes to setting the pension. If you want to help a poor family below the poverty line, you need to take the number of family members into consideration. So these numbers are enriching, because we need to take into consideration these numbers when it comes to drafting policy. This is like a general remark when it comes to the poverty line. We have an average poverty line, and this should be in line with the size of the household. Second, the value of poverty line is overestimated. Why? Because of the inflation rate. I'm not sure how did they reach this number, and I sent Dr. Heba a while ago an email in order to identify the inflation rate and the poverty line used in 2015 in order to hold a reasonable comparison between poverty line in 2015 and poverty line in 2017. I need a clarification on this calculation, but I think, just as Ms. Amel said, in the inter-survey period, the inflation rate increased. Especially if are using the quarterly surveys. Yes, I'm delving deep into technical details here, but I did not calculate that myself, and I don't want Dr. Heba to recalculate or remeasure these things, but I'm just questioning the accuracy of this number, and I want to know what is the prices, what are the prices used. Dr. Heba noted that poverty rates doubled from 16% into 2000. It's on the rise till it's 32.5% in 2017. Here I have 2 points to make. First, 32.5% might be an overestimation or more than the average because of overestimating the poverty line, if we can confirm that. And here I want to ask Dr. Huda, can we conduct a sensitivity analysis? What if we had a lower poverty line by 10%? Because, as you know, the data is taken from the beneficiaries, and sometimes they are inaccurate. Sometimes poor people overestimate their suffering, or sometimes they hide certain pieces of information. So as an exercise, we can try different poverty lines. Here we have the poverty line is at 73.6. What if the poverty line is 700 EGP? Would the poverty rate decrease, and to what extent? It's shallow, let me tell you. Those below the poverty line gap are few, but with any financial shock, people would descend into poverty. Was the ever increasing poverty rate from 2000, and of course we can go back to 1995 and 1975, poverty is on the rise. And this is surprising, or we should condemn that, because the socio-economic system have undergone changes and policies changed. We had ups and downs when it comes to development, different paces of development, different inflation rates, but one steady thing: poverty has always been on the rise. We need to discuss that further. Why are poverty rates that persistent and even on the rise? I don't have an answer. I'm just asking. I'm asking. I pose questions. I don't have any answers. It's not my job here. Dr. Heba explained the reasons for the increase in poverty rates, and she attributed that to the increase in prices. She said in 2017, 2019, the devaluation affected everything, and by the end of the reporting period, the development rate was not really picking up. It was very limited. So I think the development rate was 4 or 4.5 maximum. So the period itself has a lot to do with the ever increasing poverty rates.
But try to explain and to find an explanation for what is the main reason for reducing the consumption with the fixed, comparing with the fixed prices. Actually, it put questions in front of us, among it that the results put us in a narrow path that we cannot, a narrow tunnel that we can't get out of it. In the balance of the resource use balance, that the share or the percentage of the family consumption is increasing, and in the years after 2012, the average family consumption rate is higher than the economic development. So the share of the family consumption is increasing, but concerning the survey, according to the results of the survey, there is a lack in consumption with a percentage of 5.2%, and therefore this is the big problem that we face, that we can't solve it up till now. And although I am specialized in the national accounts and the statistics, but we did not find a proper solution up till now. This is a big problem. We have to find a solution for this because it makes me feel that the prices used is higher than the actual prices. And therefore the consumption rate was reduced comparing to the fixed prices about 5% in the period of time, in the period of 2017 till 2018. This is according to the annual rate. I can calculate the raise in the family consumption every 3 months. But I can calculate the annual average. So here I have 17 and 18, 2 years, more than 2 years. We have the months of the last quarter, so it needs a fine tuning from the second point. I have a problem with the CPI. We, together with the, we tried very hard to be precise while updating the basket, while gathering and collecting the information, and the calculation of the CPI was improved. But I think that there is still lots of issues, lots of points concerning collecting information and collecting the database. I don't want to go through this information. It's about time that CAP mass, with all the changes and the devaluation, to review the way of calculating the CPI. If the explanation that Dr. Heba mentioned, that the reduction in the consumption, the main reason is the prices, and this for sure is one of the main reasons for poverty from the year 2004 till 2008, 2011, 2013, 2015. So this issue need to be reviewed. And the other point is that is very important for me: poverty, development, and the distribution of the income. According to what was mentioned in the presentation, that the effect of the high prices on the goods, that the goods rather than the food and beverage goods has a big impact. I did not understand this point, but actually the prices, the high prices for the non-food and beverage products has a higher impact on the lower classes. The point that is absent in this analysis, yes, we talked about prices, about consumption, about income. Yes, we have this database. So where is the support? Where is the subsidy? What is the percentage of the subsidies? Maybe the newspapers refer to this, that because, or as a result of the subsidies, the percentage of poverty was decreased for about 4%, but this is not a correct cost-benefit analysis. Subsidies is actually, it costs, it has an economic cost, and without any social benefit, only 4%, 4 points percent. It should be 36. In Egypt, 32 from 36, no big difference. Cost-benefit analysis is very important. The point number 7 is concerning the decomposition. The high or the low consumption and its relation to the economic development, if we can solve this problem, and the lack of equal distribution. We have to review the relation between the general economic situation with the indicators, with the consumption indicators, especially for the real estate goods and the other goods. It doesn't make sense that all these commercials and advertising, we are talking about million and million of dollars and pounds, and we are talking about a poor country. And all the database and all the information tells us that there is equality in distribution. Why we have such confusion? And what we see concerning the cars, the commercials for the cars, millions and billions of Egyptian pounds. And the percentage of consumption cars, of the families that they own cars, they don't exceed 6 or 7%. There are phenomena that we need to review. And we should have a kind of relation between these kind of phenomena and between reality. Point number 8 and 9, we are talking here about the inequality and all the indicators, the calculated indicators. According to all the foreign studies, Bent Hansen is using a terminology which is egalitarian, and all the indicators, the gene indicator, we were only talking about 33% or 34%. It's now 29%, and this is according to the international standards. This is considered to be a fair society. The economists sometimes are not convinced with such indicator. Dr. Heba said the inequality distribution was reduced all over the state, in the rural areas and in the urban areas. Me, as a researcher, I see that the main problem of Egypt is poverty and not the unequal distribution. If I have 1%, they are rich, okay, no problem at all. In the United States, they also complain that they have 1% confronting 99%. So the problem in Egypt, either it is 50%, 80%, or even 3%. This is a real problem. A real problem. We have to focus on solving this problem, talking about the equal distribution and talking about this make us not focusing on improving and developing, because actually the improving and developing is the solution. There is no alternative. And this takes us away from the main problem, which is poverty, with all its reasons, characteristics that Dr. Heba talked about. The last comment, and I'm going to disagree with Dr. Abla clearly, is the illusion of the vanishing or the disappearing of the middle class. Dr. Abla says that the middle class is almost vanishing. The middle class, it's all of us. According to the component of the middle class, we are the closest to the decision makers, to the policy makers. The middle class, in my book, talking about fair and justice development, according to the documents and according to the information and database, that the middle class benefit from the economic situation in all stages. What whatever the system was, the middle class was the most sector that they benefit from the economic situation. I'm going to stop here. Please keep my comments in your mind. It's very easy to talk about poor people, but we have to find solutions for their problems instead of just talking about their problems. We are talking as if we are all poor, but actually this is not true. And Dr. Ali Misel, he actually is very proud that 80% of the Egyptian population, they have food supply coupons. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You succeeded to raise all these hands who wants to ask questions. I'll give you the opportunity to answer, to comment, but actually I have to comment. The main aim of the statistical exercise done by the CAPMAS, we are living a reality. We are living a reality. We are living. I'm not trying to decorate the results. No, I have to see the results in order to amend these results, in order to review these results. A country like China, and the poverty is about 2% after it was 60%. I have to study this, and I study how did they reach this percentage, not to try to convince people that no, it is not as bad as it looks. Yes, I am still on my opinion that the middle class is almost disappearing. Wherever this phenomenon that you were talking about the real estate, about the cars, you're talking about only 2%, about 2% of the society, and those people in front of us, they are not from the middle class sector. We are not representing the middle class sector. It is not just like tackling the feelings of the poor people, but we have to study the research or the analysis and to compare it to the reality. Actually, we have a high percentage of poor. At least in front of us, we have to face it. We have to find solutions for these problems, and we have to ask ourselves the real questions. Once we have such details, such information and database, we have detailed information and database from all over the government. They should be translated into indicators that should be measured regularly in order to improve, not to measure. Is تكافل وكرامة are enough for solving the problem of poverty? Whenever we talk about the problem of poverty, we mention تكافل and كرامة, but تكافل and كرامة are enough for solving the problem of poverty. I need social mobilization. I need to improve education. I need to create job opportunities. It's a big story. The target is not to look nice, but the target is to see our problems, our real problems, talking frankly speaking, in order to improve, because the goal at the end is the development. And if any effort inside any state is not focusing on the development of the human being, so this is nonsense. I will try to answer briefly on what Dr. Osman said, because I would like to listen to your comments. First of all, the title of the forum is an analysis of income, expenditure, and consumption survey. I did not go out of the frame. I invite Dr. Abla to hold another forum or seminar for the poverty plan. please conduct a seminar for the poverty plan. The title of this seminar is not targeting or planning. We have a different title here. So as Dr. Abla said, in order to start adapting strategies in order to reduce these strategies, these percentages. These are the most important points that I wanted to tackle. The issue of the fragility, and we actually implemented the model. All these figures, to use these figures in order to design policies. When I talk about the families, when I talk about the number of the families, when I talk about the probability of entering the circle of poverty, I mean that please look at the population numbers. Each point of this, like for example, the job opportunities, like education. I'm not just saying this, I'm saying this because this is the reality. So please start designing the policies, start designing the strategies in order to not to fall in this bad circle. The other point that you talked about it in details, which is the poverty line, and please allow me to talk in more details. We are talking about the poverty line, which is a kind of the what are the main needs of the families. In this research and comparing it with the previous research, and actually the previous research, the number here is 8,827. The other research, it was 5,000. If we compare the two percentage, it will be less than the percentage of inflation, because the families, I see the percentage of the consumption of the families in the year 2018, as Mrs. Amal said, the families, they start reducing from the main needs. They take their main needs from other places. They start reducing, for example, like housing, like education. They have to spend money on this, so they start reducing their consumption on the food of and beverages. So the behavior of consumption was changed. So once I specify the main needs, or the basic needs in 2018, I depend on the consumption behavior in the year 2018. In the year 2015, I depended on this behavior, and the difference here, I'm talking about 5,000 in 2015. In 2018, it is 8,000. The percentage is less than the inflation percentage. The percentage of inflation is about 55%. That was done by the CAP mass in 1 year, or in few months. It jumped to 33% because of the devaluation that occurred. So the issue is not the issue is clear for everybody. The second point is, when I talk about what are the reasons of poverty, I did not said that the CPI. I am talking about the reduction of the real value of consumption. It might be as a result of, for example, there is no big production, the incomes are not high, and for this reason the real value decreased. But I did not mention that this is the only reason. I did not say that the only reason in the inflation are two things: less job opportunities and the absence of real development, and at the same time the prices raised up. So we, as professors, every year the salaries, they are raised about 15%, but the prices, they raise up about 30%. So the real value decreased, not only because of the prices, but actually because the incomes did not raise up in parallel to the increasement that happened in the prices. The real consumption, it comes that that the consumption raised, but not parallel to the high prices. But this doesn't mean that the high prices is the only reason. The other point that we talked about it a lot once you were former Minister of Planning, the national accountant. There are documents not only in Egypt but all over the world. First of all, here in Egypt, the family consumption, it is not calculated. They calculate the result on one side, on the other side they calculate the national consumption, the investments importing and exporting, and the rest it is put in the consumption when it is raised annually. When they say that the first or the basic catalyst for development is consumption, so I can't say that there is nothing called the main catalyst for development. I distribute the production, I put everything in the consumption, and for this reason once the discrepancy increased, and for this reason I cannot depend on it as a value that reflect the reality. Maybe you referred also to the sequence of the survey. The survey that used to be conducted every 5 years, but now it is conducted every 2 years. In the year 2008, 2009, it was by coincidence that it was the food crisis and the economic crisis. It was just by coincidence, but it was not conducted especially for this. Then in the year 2011 and 2012, there was a revolution. And then in the year 2012 and from the period of 2015 and 2018, there we have problems. So all the time we have issues, we have subjects, we have problems. I can't say to the CAP master, oh, please, we are going to have a problem, we are going to have a crisis, so please start conducting a survey. So it was by coincidence that these surveys were conducted.
Please, I wanted you to comment more on using the result in defining policies and strategies. This is what I was keen to listen. How can we reflect these in the coming policies? You were once the Minister of Planning, and I want you to comment on that. How can we define policies in line with these results? Excuse me, Dr. Abla, we want you to comment on that. Here I conducted a study, and then we read the study together, we analyzed the data, and now, yes, it's an analytical reading. Is this of course needs a series of symposiums and a series of workshops, but what I'm saying is that this is the current situation. Development is there, and yes, you said that poverty is due to the lack of development and not to the lack of inequality. Okay, of course there are geographical disparities that are very clear, and we need to discuss these matters. Yes, Upper Egypt has gained some focus, but the poverty rate was 56 and now it's 50 something. Sorry, the sound went off for a couple of seconds.